Have you ever felt so deflated and down because all you get is a no? No from potential clients, no from perhaps future employees, no from your current employees. You just get no, no, no. And how do you deal with this? How do you continue to be the confident person that you are if all you get is a no? So, today, in today's podcast episode, we are going to navigate topics about how to deal with rejection and how to continue building confidence, how to stay authentic, how to embrace change and personal growth, the importance of succession planning and an organization, and how leadership gets into play on that, and the role of effective and empathetic listening in leadership. So I'm very excited to bring our guest today. And for anybody that does not know who I am, welcome to Scale to Exit. My name is Alejandra Santos. I am your hostess with the mostest, and this podcast is curated for business owners and entrepreneurs that are trying to build and scale and perhaps exit their business in the next few years. We bring a collection of amazing insights, conversations from authors, from experts in their field to help you navigate topics like how to scale your business, what makes your business valuable, how leadership plays such an important role in having a high business valuation, how team dynamics go into play with your valuation as well. What are the things that you need to have in place from the beginning in order to have a high value business. So stay tuned because we talk about from the ins and outs with very nice, spicy, saucy conversations with experts. And in today's episode, I'm bringing an author and mother of two who is a motivational speaker. She has spoken so much about leadership in TEDx. She has been recognized. She has been on the worldwide by having her franchise. And she contributes to women, and not only women, to all genders, small business owners and entrepreneurs, and how to become a great leader. Her name is Tradara McLaurine. And yeah, so she is also a speaker on our November 1st event. For everybody that's listening and has been listening, and for everybody that's new, we are hosting a business summit, a virtual business summit for women on November 1st. This business summit is to empower women create legacy wealth through their business. And we're going to talk about topics on like how to access capital as a woman, how to scale your business, best practices and strategies from people that have done it and have been there. We're going to talk about how to do it with grace and grit. Lots of personal development and growth and leadership as well. We're going to have workshops for you, how to branding strategies for your business. So all of those topics will be addressed in the Business Summit. It's a full day event from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. Pacific Standard. It's virtual. And I invite you, if you are a male listening in, I invite you to share this event with your colleagues, your friends, your loved ones. This is an event that you don't want people to miss. I have gathered a great lineup of speakers, and we're all motivated and united together with the same mission to empower women to build legacies. Okay. So with that being said, I have one of the speakers on the waiting room right now. So let's go ahead and bring her in. And I'm sure you guys will love this episode as much as I do. On another note, I just want to say something. The recording was done through a phone interview just because technology was giving a few problems that day. But the audio may come in and out. So if that is the case, well, just continue tuning in. All right. Well, I'll see you on the other side. Thank you so much, Tradara, for coming to Scale to Exit. I have Tradara McLaurine here, and we're going to talk about her amazing journey about in leadership. And she's a public speaker that is well known, and she has done TEDx, and she has done so many engagements. And your primarily focus is leadership, right? So I want you to talk to me a little bit about your journey, how you got there.
Sure. So, how it all started, honestly, it started with I've always wanted to be a writer. And that started back when I was in high school and I used to write poetry. So, I actually went to school to study accounting. And then I was passing and doing really well in my English classes. And I spoke about maybe I should do this for a living. And my professor said, well, if you want to be a starving artist, then yeah, go ahead and be an author. So I wasn't liking what that was saying. So I went ahead and stuck with the accounting and legal studies route. Fast forward a few years, a lot of years forward, my daughter was going through this journey of trying to realize why her father, who used to be home during the day, was now not. And so his job had switched and he had went to the night shift. So I'm explaining that he's gone because he's working. So I wrote a book called Why Daddy Works. And that was to help explain that to her. And in that book, I post pictures of her and her father walking through different things. So Daddy works so we can eat. And that was one of the pictures, and it had her and her father eating. So they were very simple concepts that she can understand because she was 3. And so I gave that to him for a Christmas present. And when he opened it, my grandmother was saying, there are probably other children that are going through similar situations. Why don't you try to publish it? So I went through that route and went ahead and published Why Mommy Works and Why Daddy Works in 2017. And then I released my third book in 2022, which is called I Want a Nickname. And that was another, I guess, nod to my daughter as well. She came home and asked if she had a nickname. And I didn't understand why, because I call her a nickname that she was like, no, I'm not having a teacher call me that. And come to find out is that she was frustrated with her name constantly being mispronounced. So I wrote I Want a Nickname to help with empowerment around one's name and helping children, even adults maybe, have the confidence in correcting others when their names are mispronounced and it's not a wrong thing to do. So that started the author journey. And then the speaking journey started honestly with the conference. I was asked to speak at the Terre Haute Young Leaders Conference. And with that conference, I really talked about how I don't believe that work life balance exists. And I think that it's a myth and that you have to learn how to integrate your life, because balance basically says that two things equal the same amount of weight. And while my work is definitely important, I wouldn't say it has the same amount of work, weight as my life does. So I feel that as individuals who are learning and growing, that we're struggling trying to achieve something that doesn't exist, and that is balance. So that's a short and dirty version.
Oh my God, I love your journey. So you basically dedicate your success to your daughter. That's
With the writing, yeah, a lot of the topics is that was just the best way to educate with it. And the funny thing is now my son, he's like, oh, "Where's my book?" And so I've written 2 that are related to different situations or issues that he's encountered. I just haven't published it yet, but I don't know. I just felt like that was a great way to educate, and then I also wanted to increase representation in children's books. So a lot of the children's books that I was purchasing when they were younger, they didn't look like them. The characters didn't look like my kids. So I wanted to make sure that that was important, that they were seeing different dynamics in with families and with children that look just like them in the stories that they're reading.
Yeah, that's really important for people to feel identified in everything that's, identified in some way in a book or in a story, that there is somebody out there. So in terms of women in leadership, how are you contributing right now to the development of women as leaders and in the workplace and also as business owners?
Yeah, sure. So that helped my journey as well. So not only do I work full time, I work full time at a university. I have the 2 children, and then I do the books, the author thing, speaking thing, and then I have a franchise that I'm trying to grow as well at the same time. So with that, I practice what I'm preaching. I understand what it's like as you're trying to juggle all the balls that you have in the air with trying to get kids to places on time and make sure they're having activities, to make sure you're performing well at your job, to wanting to start out and be an entrepreneur and on your own. So with that space, I try to really incorporate what we're doing. So I have my first speech that I did is called Change Your Shoes. And with that one, I literally changed my pairs of shoes as I introduce a different concept. So the first one I wore heels, and with that one I was really telling individuals about perception, because when I first started working I had an idea that a professional had to wear heels every day, they had to dress up, they had to wear makeup, and I did that for a while, but I realized that that didn't build my credibility. I was still questioned. So when I was pregnant, I changed all that. One, I was not waking up early to do the makeup thing, and the heels was not working either. So I realized that those things that I was relying on to make me a professional just wasn't working. So I changed my shoes after that, and I talk about adapting and adaptation. And with that, that is where I talk about I could no longer rely on the outward abilities of saying, yes, this is why Tradara is qualified to do X, Y, and Z. So I talk about how you can incorporate what you know and what you learn and how you demonstrate that. Then my next lesson is I flip to tennis shoes. And with my tennis shoes, I talk about how to say no. So with that one, I am now a working mother, and I wanted to make sure that I'm the best mother that I can be. But at the same time, I'm a driven, ambitious woman too. So I want to make sure that I am in executive positions. I want to make sure that I'm in leadership roles. So with that, I couldn't say yes to everything. And I feel like as new professionals, not only women, but we say yes to a lot to be seated at the table. And I share tips about how to say no to things and what do you figure out how to say yes to. And then I also talk about like the self care. And I feel a lot of times with self care, we take self out of that. And we listen to others about how we need to recharge ourselves instead of listening to our bodies and doing what we think is best.
Okay, so you said a lot there. Women, we don't have a seat at the table most of the times. We're working in a male dominated industry. I feel like even whatever the industry is, it's always male dominated, right? And we do say yes all the time. Yes. What are like, because you've done so much, work on this space, what are some of the challenges that you think that we have as in leadership as women, that we have to say yes all the time, and that drive this kind of behavior?
Yeah, I think it's not only the yes, but the sorry. I feel as if we say I'm sorry a lot, and I had to stop myself in saying that. We feel guilty as if having another person to wait for us. Like, can't count the amount of emails that I said, well, thank you for your patience, or I'm sorry you had to wait on me, and understanding that there is value in that. And I believe that a lot of that is just society. We are seen as the nurturers, and with the nurturers, we are sacrificial, and we're often putting ourselves out there for another. So I believe that's kind of how it all starts when we're in those roles. And two, I think is trying to make sure we don't live up to stereotypes. I know for me, I did not want to be seen as the angry Black woman at work. So I had to make sure, how do I have my conversations and show that this is just me being passionate? This is just me being knowledgeable. It's not me being angry. So I believe a lot of that, those things, those small voices in our heads are talking to us, and then that's coming out in the workforce. But that's where I go with the heels things. Like, we can't keep doing that perception because it's hard to maintain that. Those heels are gonna hurt. I don't care how much, how much foot pads you put in there, how much you're gonna spray your feet or whatever. At the end of the day, them heels are gonna hurt. You're gonna have to take them off.
Oh my God, yes. So, um, in terms of like, as women, right? Like you said a lot there, like we like to say sorry a lot, unfortunately. And that is because we do live by these expectations of invalidation, external validation and acceptance more than any other male leader, I would say. And that's because, like you said, our nurturing side. But in what do you think is the best way to do this, or what do you recommend people, women, to do this? Do you recommend for us to embrace more of our male energy, or should we a combination of both, but like really know when to step up more with the other one? Like, what is your take on this?
And I think the thing first is I don't know if it's necessarily male energy. Like we have that in us. We just choose to sometimes make ourselves small in those spaces. And sometimes I believe that we make ourselves feel small in those spaces either due to past experiences where we were large and we lit up the room and realized that somebody was trying to dim it or realized that brought the claws out. So whether or not we want to handle that, adversity, we kind of backed up and said, maybe I don't want to do this anymore. I often notice as well as when you have confidence in a topic, a lot of times your passion comes out naturally. A lot of times you're able to speak naturally because you're ready to go up and buck against that. I also think it's helpful to know what you're willing to lose. It's very important to know what we want to battle for and what we don't want to go to battle for. We don't have to fix everything. We don't have to save everything. And really, truly understand your values when it comes down to it. If you're going to say you're sorry, are you really sorry? Like, are you just saying it because you feel like that's something you should have said? If you're not changing the behavior behind it, then you're just literally just saying it as a word. There's no action that's following it. So I always say go back to the values, but in front of it. So instead of me now, if I'm really not sorry for someone waiting on me because I had a lot to do, I'm not going to say sorry. I will say thank you for your patience or thank you for waiting and thank them. Like I show appreciation a whole lot more now than I show that I'm apologetic because on certain things, I'm not superwoman and I don't want that cake. So I had 6 meetings today. Sorry that, I don't want to say sorry you had to wait. Thank you for waiting. I had 6 meetings today. Not superwoman.
I love that you said that we're not superwoman. Yeah, we as women, we like to fix everything and do everything and pile on, and then we just get the short end of the stick at the end of the day, basically.
Yeah.
Because you have worked so much in this space, like what are some strategies, for example, because there's women that deal with like belief system as well, and like things that being ingrained since children, like you need to be more feminine or you need to take a certain talk certain way. What are some strategies that you recommend for women to do in order to change these behaviors if it's ingrained from the childhood?
So I think it's something that the woman has to decide if that's a behavior they want to change. Because if they don't want to change that behavior and that is who they are, they shouldn't. So that's where I say it goes back to your values. If you value the way that you were raised and how you were taught, and that you need to be in this space and be that way and operate that way, then that's what you value. It's not going to be uncomfortable for you. You're going to be able to navigate that space just fine. But if you are uncomfortable, then there's something telling you in your body that this is not right. Now, whether it's not right externally or whether it's not right internally, we need to make sure that we're listening to our bodies and making sure that we are responding in the way that makes us feel comfortable and not necessarily always responding so that somebody else is comfortable. So the first thing I would say is just making sure your values are aligned, having those questions with yourself, because if your values are aligned, you can rest in the decision that you made.
And then you're true to yourself, so
Mhm.
you're actually, you defend your point of view and where you stand with everything. So for you to come here to this point, what was your aha moment? Because I'm sure that you had a few aha moments along the way.
Yeah, definitely. The aha moment was realizing some like when I was starting to be open, like after I got to a certain level in my career, I just realized that it didn't it didn't matter. Like I had to really find out like this is Tradara. So as much as somebody would say, you need to make sure all your email says good morning because that shows that you're kind. If I don't say good morning, I'm still kind. I can say, dear Tradara and get right to the point. I don't have to say good morning. Hope you have a great day. Now get to my comment. So after I started to really realize who I was as a person when I was being the authentic me, it just was easier to do. I realized that it was so much harder and it took a lot of time out of my day trying to fit into all these spaces and pieces that other individuals wanted me to. And then I wasn't able to get everything that I wanted to accomplish. I also realized that people respected it. So doing interviews for full-time positions and I'm telling people flat out, like, this is who I am and this is who I'm bringing to the table. You know who you selected. I told you exactly who I was and who I am in that situation. I've also had the conversation too. If you're seeing this out of me, this is me being passionate. This is not me being angry. I know how to be in certain spaces, and you hired me, or you know, consulted with me for a reason. So I got to make sure that I am giving you the authentic Tradera. I'm not giving you a version of me. And it is very, very risky. Rejection is real. I definitely will get rejections, whether that's through the books or whether that's through the franchise. I mean, a lot of my spaces, I have gotten comfortable with being told no. And I'm just confident in faith, basically, that that was a room that I was not supposed to be in. That was a table I was not supposed to sit at. And I realized when it is for me, it's crazy the amount of doors that will open and how easy the path is to travel. But it is scary, I'm not gonna lie.
Oh my God, I love everything that you said. I can relate to. I want to go back to being your authentic you. You mentioned that, and you're very strong on that point. And that is something that's hard as male and females to really like first know who you are, right?
Yeah.
And then embrace that and be you. Let's go back to that part. Like what, because you've been through the process, what would be something that you would tell everybody how to really embrace yourself, get to know yourself, to sit down with yourself and just like really defend yourself and be that person for to show up? Like what would something that you do?
I think the one thing is when you are up to somebody or up against a thought that doesn't align and you know it doesn't align, it's easier for you to go back and see. Also, when you are a good person, when you're doing something that's aligned, in all reality, you don't have to advertise for yourself. The world will do it for you. So I say that all the time. Very rarely do I see commercials, of Louis Vuitton. Like, I don't see commercials about that. Why? Because that name and everything speaks for itself. That marketing and everything, that brand is there. We all have brands as well. And that brand starts as soon as we are introducing ourselves to each other. Like, even our connection, my brand came to you through Innovation Women. And then after that, it came from here. And my brand is being established right now through this podcast with you and I, and even with the public. They're going to have their own perception of you and myself. So with that, we just have to understand that, is our brand aligned? Is our brand consistent? Is what we're putting out there what we really want to be out there? Are we walking that walk? Can everybody see that? I did a speaking engagement a couple years ago, and the best compliment that a person gave me was that Tradera was the same person that I got from her website. She was the same person that I got from her social media. So to me, that was saying, oh, I'm doing something right. I'm not portraying a fake person. And also, I would say getting raw. I did a photo shoot one day for the business, and I was makeup and lashes and everything. And I did another one, and I didn't wear makeup at all. And with that one, it was so humbling when I looked at it, and I was like, oh my goodness, I should have worn makeup, or I should have did something. And I started to debate so much, but I just went ahead and went with it and still got the same amount of traction. So, when you're walking in your alignment and all of it's there, you really don't have to put up that big of a fight, because your brand is going to speak for itself.
Yeah, I like everything that you said. Authenticity is something that we talk about, but it's so hard to put it into words on how to get there. Like how do you become authentic? Like that's a question that happens a lot. And I feel like there's a lot of brands out there that are not authentic. Like you said, you have to develop your persona branding, and then the business bleeds from your persona branding. Because you are involved in a franchise and you're doing so many different projects and you're an author and you keep evolving and changing, right? Through every book that you speak. How do you continue evolving your brand and still maintain what the foundational aspect is as you evolve?
Sure. One, I would say first is that change is inevitable. We're all going to change. I'm not the same woman that I was when I was 16 to when I was in my 20s to even, being in my 30s. It's different. Like, but my foundation is set. So my foundation when I was 16, it may have been a square. And now that, I'm 30, it might be a rectangle. But at the end of the day, it's still a shape. So making sure that we are confident in that and letting everybody know that change is okay. When it comes down to my brand, whether I'm doing books or speaking or the franchise, everything that I'm doing is still aligned to at the beginning. And at the beginning is I want to make sure that I am inspiring someone to do something that they didn't think they could do. When it comes down to the children's book, I wanted to literally just inspire my daughter to understand that you are still loved by your parents, even when you go to daycare and we have to work. I want to empower the kid to know it's okay for you to correct someone if they say your name wrong. That is the first time that you are really advocating for yourself. You're learning your voice, and that's a skill you're going to need later. With the franchise that I'm doing with that, it's really focusing on STEM, and it's helping, in my view, with women who are not, women in STEM is needed. Minorities in STEM is needed. And I represent both of those. So everything that I'm doing and I say yes to, it has to align with the foundation, with the brand that I have. And if it doesn't, I have to say no. I can't say yes to everybody. And I think that's the first tip that we all need to know when it comes to being authentic. If you are authentically you, somebody's not going to like you. And you have to understand that somebody's not going to like you and you're not going to be for everybody. And that needs to be okay.
And that needs to be okay. You know how many people don't like me, so that's great that you say. I'm so glad. Well, you sound very. I love that. I feel your confidence from like the screen. By the way, I feel
Thank
like I
you.
can inhale your confidence. Um, but being confident is really hard. What
Yes.
do you? Yes, tell me what you do to like increase your confidence. What you've been doing so far.
So the first thing that I normally do before I have to talk to someone else, I either listen to religious music or I'll pray. I do that before I go on any stage. I do that before I speak to anyone. I pray about it. I listen to music about it. And that is my motivation. I want to make sure that whatever I am saying is not only going to represent me, but it's going to, like I said, represent that's all of me. And that has to do with my faith as well. So that's my confidence. But I definitely am a shaker at the beginning as well. I talk with my hands, and that's something that I've embraced too. I talk fast as well. So I have to learn sometimes to pace myself, and I'll do little tips with that. But I realize when I concentrate so much on pacing, I mess up. And then when you start messing up, you start to get nervous. And so, really starting to be relaxed. And some of that relaxation, to be honest, it comes down to outfits. Like, don't wear an outfit that you feel like when you're sitting it's going to rise up. Don't wear shoes that you can't walk in, because that all of that your mind is somewhere else because you're trying to think about the outwardness. So being comfortable literally sometimes start with what you're wearing, what you're telling yourself in your head, and making sure you're prepping before it's time to turn on.
So preparation is key. I like your rituals, yeah, that you do. Like you listen to music and you also like pray. I love that. I meditate. What I do is I meditate or I sit in a room and I vision like what's gonna happen, and then I hopefully I can manifest that vision. um in through your career, what are the challenges that you have seen or obstacles that you have seen that women have because of n- that are not able to increase their confidence level?
Not being able to handle the rejection,
Okay.
um, not taking the rejection personally, and knowing when grit needs to turn to quit. I read a book called Quit, and I thought that was so valuable because you hear a lot about people saying you need to keep going, you need to push, you need to persevere. You also got to know when it's time to let go. You got to know when it's time to quit, when something is no longer serving you,
Yeah.
and not taking that as a failure. I went through that myself. I wanted to become a doctor. That was my goal, and doctor, PhD, not medical. But I wanted to go for my doctorate, and I actually started down that journey, and then it was horrible. It was a horrible journey. I was not happy with it, and I realized a lot of what I was being taught and what I was doing, I don't know if I necessarily needed it to get ahead and do what I wanted it to do. So that was a goal I had written for years ago, that I was going to be a PhD, and then deciding not to go, it starts to assume, I mean, starting not to continue. I finished the semester, but knowing not to continue, I had to even change my mind. Like, when you tell somebody that you quit, they don't praise you for that. People look at you as if you failed as soon as you say quitting, but you need to know, like, maybe I quit on time. And maybe that quit wasn't a bad thing. Maybe that quit was a success. So that, I think that's what makes it hard, is that, and we want to be superwoman. As soon as somebody put that superwoman thing on us, it's like, yes, I'm gonna go ahead and wear that cape, and you know what, you can keep it.
You can keep it. I love it. Yeah. You said a lot there. So, the rejection part, right? We get rejected. Like, when you're a business owner, you get rejected all the time. I do my sales and business development. I actually go in the streets and talk to people. People like say, "What? What do you want from me?" Like, how do you deal with rejection? Because I know how I deal with rejection, but I want to hear from you. Like, how do you deal with that?
So I got advice from someone, and they told me that a fast no is better than a slow yes. So
Okay.
then that way you get to know your audience. Like, if somebody is telling you no right then and there, okay, cool. I don't, we don't need each other at this moment.
Thank
And if
you.
they do, they'll, right, thank you, I can move on to somebody else. But instead, we hear that no, and we keep trying to, pursue that no. Whether that is an ego thing, or maybe we feel like our message didn't go there, but they said no. So take that no and move on to the next person that will say yes. So stop wasting time on the no, and if you are going to continue to spend time on that no, make sure you're changing your message. But again, if that message doesn't align, is that a yes you really wanted? Like, what did you sacrifice to get that yes? So there's feedback in no. There is feedback in no. Why did that person say no? Did I have my audience wrong? Was my timing wrong? What did I need? So take that advice, pivot, and then come back and maybe get them later, and they might turn into a yes. But I get upset when I get a no. I do not like getting a no. But now I'm just like, add you to the list.
I know. It always gets frustrating when somebody tells you no. I'm like walking around and I'm like, okay, come on, guys. Like, it's sunny, it's hot. I really just, can you just welcome me with open arms? Like,
Yeah.
don't just say goodbye,
Right.
but what you're saying is right. Like, a fast no is better than a slow yes, because a slow yes keeps you hanging and you're there meeting with these people for like 8, 9 times, and it's painful. It's so
Yeah.
painful. Yeah.
And I feel
So,
like, sorry, I was gonna say, I feel like why we get so upset sometimes about the no's is that we gave up something. Whether that is, oh, I was afraid to talk to somebody, and oh my goodness, I talked to you and they still told me no, or I took so much time to invest in this yes and you still told me no. Like you said, we're hanging on a hook for months to get a slow yes from somebody. How much energy were we wasting waiting for that yes that took months down the road, that we could have put somewhere else to get five yeses, to figure it out. Now, if that one yes was a quality yes, then go ahead and go for it. But I think that that's what hurts sometimes with that no, is what did we give up? What did we sacrifice? And was it worth it?
yeah. Yeah. You talk a lot about risk too, and you talk about passion. And I am a Latina lady, as you can see, and we have a lot of passion, you and I. So I'm interested to hear, how have you communicate in a way that conveys, this is my passion. I'm not trying to be, over the top, or like how people can perceive you. What have you done that have helped you with this?
Yeah. So I try to prepare ahead of time. And if all else fails, I will prepare about that. So if I know that I'm about to come into a space that I'm already passionate about, I want to make sure that I am rebuttaling myself, basically. So I'm talking to myself. If they're going to say this, I want to make sure I'm ready for that. I also am explaining to people a lot of times when they meet me. If you see that I'm energetic and I'm doing all of this, best believe it is passion, not anger. I'm quiet when I'm angry. So if I'm talking to you, I'm doing all that, it's a passionate thing. It's not anger. If I'm angry, it's completely different. So it's okay to be vulnerable with that and saying the difference between passion and anger.
Yeah. No, I like that because we can be, yeah, but I mean, as women, we can be misinterpreted, like, but at the same time, we are also very energetic and charismatic and empathetic and all these great qualities. In your book, Change Your Shoes, I like that name, by the way, Change Your Shoes. How do you support business owners in embracing every facet of their changing career and changing as they continue growing their business?
Yeah. So I talk about different lessons. So I talk about failure, I talk about transparency, I talk about succession. And one thing I feel like we don't talk a lot about is succession. Do we know what we're passing on to another? Are we building up the person that's coming behind me? Like I said, do we know when to get out? Do we know when to quit? So I believe that that is just as valuable, especially depending on some businesses. Do you know when you want to sell? Do you know when you want to go public? Do you know when, like, it's so many questions and we're so sometimes we're thinking, of course, about survival, like how's the next person going to get paid, when we're going to hire this, like we're thinking about the growth, but we also got to make sure that we're thinking about sustainability and succession. And it's hard to do that when you got so many different things that you got to think about when it comes to running a business. So I talk about that balance, which, like I said, a lot of times it doesn't exist, and balance is not 50-50. And that's why I think that is a myth, especially when you're running a business. Like there are some times where and you're in that growing stage, you're probably going to spend 50, 60% of your time on client acquisition. And then after you start to get that, you can go ahead and put your energy to another area. And you have to be able to be fluid like that and ride those changes and navigate those changes.
Yeah, no, I love that you said about succession because not only for women but for men as well. Like you have no idea how many business owners I talk to and they don't have an exit strategy. They don't even know what they're gonna do with their business. Most of the time people just die and the business just kind of like passes on to whatever way. It doesn't really, they don't have voluntary exit. So succession, I feel like talking about it is a great way to create awareness, but succession, like you, I agree, is something that you have to keep in mind when you already have a business.
Right.
In your book, what kind of steps do you have any steps and strategies that you walk on to the readers on like how to incorporate all of these elements as they continue to grow?
Yeah, so it's with the speech. It's one of my talks. I want it to be a book. I haven't wrote it yet though. But yes, I teach them a couple acronyms I have in my book. I have DARE in my book.
Oh no. All right, that's
Yeah.
interesting.
Okay. So with that, I talk about in my presentation, I talk a lot about different acronyms that I introduced. So the first one is DARE, and so with that one, it talks about do, assess, reflect, and enjoy the experience. A lot of times, I believe that we forget to enjoy our experiences. We forget to reflect on those experiences in order to move forward. The next one is learning your team. So I have an acronym for that one as well, to make sure that we are, celebrating the appropriate failures that need to be celebrated, making sure that we know how to have the difficult conversations, and again, knowing who we're building up to come behind us. So I think that's something that we even learn when it comes down to the workforce. A lot of times knowledge is power and we don't want to share that knowledge. But when we don't share that knowledge in certain areas, then then it's going to suffer in that absence. Like if you think about how much money and energy is spent during turnover, a lot of that is done because history just walked out that door. The person who knows how to do that every day is walking out that door. And as a leader and as a supervisor, a lot of times you're not in the weeds. You don't know how to do everything that said person knows how to do. So I talk about knowing how to utilize that knowledge as power. Should you share it, and who should you share it with, and even knowing whether or not you need to start using NDAs or not. But preparing for tomorrow starts today.
Oh, everything that you said, I agree with. Okay, so you make a great impact and contribution into women's like business development and personal development. Do you also work with men, or is just with women that your main focus?
So I don't have a focus. The I speak to majority of leadership conferences. It's been men and women. I haven't targeted women necessarily, even though I believe that it resonates with them. So a lot of my audiences have been mixed, which I think is great because I love that we even have men that are able to resonate to us, to let you know that this is not a gender issue. Like, this is literally an entrepreneur issue. It is a business issue. It is a leadership issue. It does not have a face. So I love that I haven't been in those spaces primarily. I would love to get into it and they can resonate a little bit more to it, but I'm happy that both audiences do.
Yeah, I also feel like when we have supportive male, and as a woman in business and all of that, it becomes a little bit more powerful,
Mhm.
rather than just women supporting women, like those
Of
groups,
course.
just women only. No, I feel like we do need men in the mix
Yes.
because
Yeah. Yeah.
um that share our vision. In terms of like fear and risk, you talked a few about that. You said know what you have to lose, know when to quit. Those are very powerful things that you talk about. Have you, in your experience, have you had an experience where you quit too late, or you wish you look back, or anybody that you know that you wish you look back and didn't take that risk, the risk was too hard, it was not calculated enough, or that you want to share things not to do?
Yeah. I would say what I can share more so what I didn't quit on. So, and I thought about it with the first book, the Why Daddy Works book. When I started down that journey, I actually acquired representation, and that is so hard to do because when you being a first time author, acquiring representation is difficult. The company that acquired my story ended up changing directions and no longer wanted to publish children's authors and went completely different. So now I'm excited and I've told people I got an agent, y'all. I'm publishing. I was happy and then got dropped. So I was back to square one and I was getting rejection after rejection after rejection. So then I was like, well, maybe this story isn't as good as I thought it was. Maybe I shouldn't go down the rabbit hole of publishing and going down that. I spoke to an individual who actually told me trying to publish a book is like winning the lottery. So I was like, ooh, like nothing I was getting was good, was good news. And then after that, I met another individual, and that individual told me that there are so many famous authors now that started out self-publishing, that has been acquired, that has re-released their books and have done that. So I was like, okay, well, maybe I can do this myself. So I went ahead and went down the self-publishing route. I acquired an illustrator because I cannot draw for crap. I acquired an illustrator, and then me and the illustrator like weren't getting along. So that pushed it back because I first wrote the book in November of 2015. It didn't get published until July of 2017. So I was like, man, maybe I should quit again. Like, this is where I felt like I was getting knocked over the head. Tradara, you got dropped. You're having an issue with the illustrator. Now you don't have one anymore. Like, you're doing too much. Went ahead and still was able to see it through. And then I started to realize my value and I started to realize the purpose of the book. And the purpose was that I wanted to help kids. I wanted to help families. If I would have got rich behind it, sure, awesome. But that was not the goal behind it. I wanted representation. I wanted to help kids. I wanted to help families. And then after that, I think I did pretty well. I sold 500 of them. So being a self-published author with no notoriety in the industry and doing that while working full time and doing everything else. So I was very happy about that. And it's crazy now to even see we're 7 years later and I'm still selling that one. So that was one where I definitely felt like I should have quit and I was going to quit multiple times, but when I started to remember, okay, what was the why and how do I still do this? And is what I'm doing aligned with it? Is it worth the sacrifice? It was something that I was able to keep going. When it comes down to the time I did quit, like I said, I quit the PhD. And it was even hard for me to say I quit the PhD. That alone felt like a failure. And with it, I was doing well. My first semester of classes, I took two. I was working full time. I had two kids, and I was like, man, I still maintained my GPA. I had a 4.0, but it didn't work. I was hitting barrier after barrier after barrier with trying to take classes, and then I just realized, okay, why do I want this? Why do I want those three letters? Why do I want somebody to call me Dr. McLaurine? And when was all said and done, it had nothing to do with me. It was all ego. It was all, I hope that if somebody calls me doctor, or if I have doctor in front of my name, somebody will listen to me more, or I won't have to argue more. And that does not matter. I still would probably have to argue. I still would have to get my point across. So the reason for why I wanted it, it just didn't align, and it wasn't worth what I would have had to given up to get there.
So basically, you had to align yourself again with your purpose in order to actually make it happen. Like when you were not aligned, right? It was not happening at all. Like the doors just kept getting closed. And then once you were like, okay, I'm going back to my why. My why is because I really want to, this is my main purpose, not because I want to be called this way or any known by this way. Doors starting to open. How crazy is that?
Yeah. It's very crazy. And I realized too, because with the PhD, I was up all the time. Like I wasn't going to bed till 2 something o'clock at night because I was up studying for that and doing that because I had to make sure the kids and everything were ready to go. Then I had to wake up and get to work the next day. Like it was a lot. And that was one semester. And it was during the pandemic, which people were remote. Like I had all the flexibility and everything. And it was hard. So to now think about like, I'm going to have to sacrifice more sleep. I'm going to have to sacrifice more time with my family. It just wasn't worth it just for me to say, I hope somebody's going to, listen to me or respect me more in my industry because I'm Dr. such and such. That wasn't, that wasn't the reason. So it's not aligned for me right now. I don't know if later on I might still want the PhD, but it's very hard to walk away from a goal that you had for yourself, something that you put in black and white, something that you started, something that you got accepted, something that you got the 4.0, like you're doing it well and you're still like, nah, I'm walking away from it. And that's where I think that is the perfect contrast where with the book, I was getting no's, I was spending money and it still benefited me. But with this, I had, like I said, I had the A, I got accepted, but it didn't align at the time. So
It's interesting. What I like about this story is like the alignment part, just because we talk about a lot in this podcast about knowing your why and going back to your why, because that's gonna keep going. Entrepreneurship and in business. Oh my God, if you don't know your why, if you're doing it for the wrong reasons, you're gonna get stuck because you're not gonna be able to move forward. You need something bigger to propel you forward.
100%.
Yeah, and in leadership as well, right? How do you in terms of like leadership, how do you everything that you talked about and you write about in your books and your stories, how do you bleed that into leadership development for business owners that are trying, that they're growing their business and they're maybe thinking about one day they're going to exit?
So I would say the one thing that I integrate a lot is that I don't know everything. I'm not the professional. If you look at it, even when it comes down to books, I'm not the only one that has a book out there about a name being unique. So it may show you that I'm on the right path, but I'm by no means the expert. I am learning as I go. So that is the one thing I think that's very helpful with the leader is that you have to be able to listen to your team. So where I may be on whatever stage I'm on after a lot of my talks, I still ask people, do y'all have any questions? Do you have any insight? I talk to people afterwards because I'm still a learner at heart. I am a lifelong learner. So I have to be able to listen to my team. I have to be able to listen to feedback. I have to be able to pivot. And that is, I think, is the most important thing as a leader, is we need to know when we're leading from the front, when we're leading from the back. We need to know when we need to follow. Like, we got to learn all of that. So I may be a leader for someone right now, but there is somebody that is a leader for me.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that you talk about the team. Because I talk a lot about business valuation, and a lot of the business valuation is held on the team dynamics and on the leadership. And um I feel like we're changing, right? But like business owners are still trying to grasp on that idea that, okay, my value of my business really depends on team. What do you what is one of the things that you teach people about how to be an empathetic leader, a humble leader, when it comes to running a business?
So with that, is the first thing I would say is listen to the feedback of your team and empower your team to make mistakes. So we celebrate our team successes, but we do not empower them to make mistakes. If our team feels like a mistake is going to automatically into a termination, where are we going to get any of their, imagination? When are we going to get them to try anything new? I'm scared to do that. I'm going to get fired. I'm going to lose my livelihood. So we have to make sure that we empower our team to make mistakes. However, with that empowerment, don't give them something that can cripple your business. So making sure that you know that. And I think that even goes in line with delegation. So a lot of times this is our businesses are our babies. Like, we put a lot on the line, whether that's like figuratively through collateral or whatever it is. So we have to know how we're going to delegate. And with that delegation, delegate something that's not going to be detrimental to the business until they have earned that trust to know that, okay, now I can hand you that. But it takes a lot of time to delegate. It takes a lot of time to teach that. But it's time at the front end that you really get on the back end, if you spend it and do it right. So that is my advice a lot of times for leaders and owners, is listen to your team. They are on the ground floor. They are hearing it. They are seeing it. They're experiencing it. You have to delegate. You cannot grow if you are staying in the weeds. So understanding that. Also understanding that growth is not a grass. Like, I compare grass and trees. And what I mean by that is, if you think about it, grass does grow. It grows rapidly. It grows all the time. But a tree takes forever to grow.
Yeah.
However, with a tree, it's hard to knock that thing down. It's hard for wind to blow that down. It's
Yeah.
hard for you to even cut it down. But grass, it's recycling. It's a whole lot that can really mess up glass. So do you want to be grass or do you want to be trees?
Well, I love that, especially when in business, because in a business, I feel like you need both, right? You need the foundational, strong aspect of the tree, that long reputation, that people respect, clients love you, but then you also want the fast turnaround sales, cash, coming in, because otherwise you won't be able to pay.
Not at all. Not at all. But I think that's where it's those roots. You got to make sure your roots is there. You also got to make sure, we're going deep with, the alliteration. But with trees, you get, them leaves are gonna fall.
Yeah,
But know how to navigate through that fall. Like, we know these seasons are coming.
yeah,
Just making sure that, when that leaf fall, it'll come back.
yeah,
So if we're preparing and doing, if those roots are strong, if we are preparing, those leaves will come back around. But if we're not doing our work, bye.
yeah. No, you're right. Let me say bye. No, that's a good advice. I mean, for anybody that's listening, and for myself that I'm a business owner, I think that's really smart. Like, you do have to have patience in growing your trees, your brand, your company, all of those assets, intangible assets, your clients, your reputation. But then everything needs a root. You cannot just go fast, fast, fast. And we want things to be fast, 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 fast.
Definitely. We want to be grass. Like, I mean, even think about it when people say, grass is greener on the other side and all that stuff. Like, we definitely want grass. We want fast. But a lot of times fast doesn't stay.
Yeah, yeah, fast doesn't say. Do you want to share any kind of challenges and obstacles that you had in business? I know you're doing a lot of different ventures, and have you overcome those challenges?
So I would say the current challenge that I'm dealing with now and navigating is time. That's why I said I don't believe that balance exists, and I have to really figure out how to delegate what I need to delegate, when to take those risks. Client acquisition is still something that I struggle with, because when it comes down to being a children's book author, my audience, as much as you would think that is children, is not. They don't have any money. So I gotta talk, my client is the parents. And knowing how to have somebody elevate and change with me is definitely important. Brand recognition is important, and knowing how you handle competition. Like, everything that I'm saying today is real. The feeling of failure is real. The rejection is real. The knowing that, like, something that was really weird, Ashanti had a book about a unique name that came out the exact same month I did. And I'm like, oh, geez, I'm going up against Ashanti. Like, she has all this branding that is going on. But still, I mean, I'm doing well. You got to make sure you hit the ground running and handle the pavement. And like I said, keep pushing. So I'm going through a lot of the same challenges that I would say that other entrepreneurs are going through, and they motivate me like I hope I'll motivate another.
Yes, I mean, those challenges, client acquisition, I feel like it's always going to be an obstacle. And as you continue growing and acquire more clients, then you start developing those ideal clients relationships more, but you don't know. And even when you're growing, and if they get, like they're like, okay, well, I'm done with this, right? So then you have to develop more products or services to acquire more clients and different and diversify. And it's always
Yes.
going to be a challenge.
Yes. Yeah.
How do you deal with like the fear of failure? Because that's something that happens very common. And
Mhm.
I want to get to your input.
Yeah. So I'm definitely, I used to be afraid of failure. Now I'm more so afraid of success. And so failure was scary, but I feel like it was more so scary because of everybody else knowing that I failed. Not with me, because like right now, if my book fails, okay, everybody else feels like it failed, right? But to think about what happens when you're successful, and then all of a sudden something drops. Like, oh my goodness. Think about when you go and you're not worrying about money because the bills is paid and the clients are coming, and then something stops. And the thing that used to really concern me was during the time where companies, or like, the world was going against certain companies based off of their beliefs. And then it was like, well, no, don't go buy, this product anymore. Don't do that anymore. How scary that is, especially when you have a franchise. Like, if something happens with the franchise and is that representative of that owner, that comes back on me. How do I deal with that? And it's something that you may not ever even know. So I think that is the thing, is about, I'm more afraid of success. And I definitely talked to my therapist about that one, to understand that you're meant to be wherever you're meant to be at. So if you're meant to be successful, you're meant to be up there and flourishing and growing, then that's fine. If you're meant to drop a little bit, then you will recover from that. And I think that is the beauty of business. If you did it once, you can do it again.
Yeah.
And I'm a firm believer in that. If I did it once, I can do it again.
Yeah. No, I like the way you say. Honestly, the biggest fear when it comes to having a business is really like not doing it right or failing and all of that stuff. But in all reality, when you look at it, you're like, it's not even that bad. Like,
Yeah.
okay, it didn't work out. I'll try it
Yeah.
again. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's related to control. Like, I don't know if we're afraid of failure, or, I mean, now I'm talking about it, even, I don't even know if I'm afraid of success. I'm afraid of losing control.
yeah,
And when it's all said and done, we don't have control over anything.
yeah,
I don't have control whether I fail or succeed. I want to have control over that, and I think that when we fail, we feel like, oh my goodness, I lost that control. And when we're successful, it's like, I got to keep it. I got to make sure I'm always operating at this level, because if I
yeah,
do anything else, I'm gonna drop down here and I'm gonna fit like.
yeah.
It might be more control than fear of control, of losing control, than it is of failure and success. And when it's all said and done, we don't have control at all.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I like to think about it like I don't want to control so much because controlling is exhausting.
Yes. So
It's
exhausting.
so exhausting. God.
Yes, it is.
Is there anything else that you would like to add that I haven't asked you yet?
No, I think you asked a lot of great questions and even had me thinking about it. So I just hope that it empowers the audience and that they learn something from it and even keeping the conversation going. And I think the best thing that we can have when it comes down to scale to exit is, listening
Mhm.
to another and realizing that we're not the experts. We may be one of an expert. We may be a part of a team of experts, but we're not the expert.
Yeah, no, I love that. I am get out of the ego, right? Lead
Yeah.
with a humbleness and empathetic. Yeah,
Yeah.
not be the one person that knows it all. So, Tradara, you're gonna be on November 1st
Yes.
in the Business Summit for Female Leaders Build Legacy Wealth, and you're
Mhm.
gonna be talking with the panel about leadership and leadership development. And I'm very excited to have you there. So for everybody that's listening, come and see Tradara at November 1st, which is a Friday. And I believe your time is around 7 p.m., right?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
nighttime, yeah.
Yes. Yes.
So we're gonna promote about it. But thank you so much for coming into Scale to Exit. You've been great. I love
Thank
having
you.
you here. And
Thanks.
thank you for everything that you do for business owners and entrepreneurs. And I cannot wait to hear more about your amazing ventures that you're going to be doing. So
Thank
I'm
you.
excited. Yeah, thank you. And we'll see you later, guys. Okay, bye. Bye, muchachos. That was